Some people love Excel, some people hate Excel, some people have to use Excel in their work and use it mainly for inputting data. But there's a lot in Excel that you can do, and sometimes that functionality is quite dazzling. So this demonstration is geared at how you can get more out of using Excel, starting with some basic formatting tricks. Check out our other demos for other tricks for aggregating, analyzing, and presenting your data. To begin, let's say you've inherited a data set that isn't very pleasing to look at. Of course, if you're not used to Excel, it can be very challenging to figure out how to start making this into something that you can more easily use. But there's some things to help, and I'll focus on these tricks with this data set, which represents data that Stable Roots, the fictitious social enterprise in other examples on the Demonstrating Value website, is collecting about its employees. So the first thing is to be able to see the data more clearly. Select the columns by clicking on the letters at the top. But first I'll just position it so that I can see all of the data set. So I'll click on each of the columns and select them. And so the way you can tell it's selected, of course, is that the background is changed from white into gray. And then the simple trick is to choose a line between any two columns on the header row, so where you see the alphabet here, and double click. And that will automatically stretch out the columns to be the maximum size of any of the content in that column. While your data set is now a lot easier to see, it does make some of the columns very widely spaced, for example, the ones over at the right now. And you can't see all of the data set like you once could. You have a few options. You could zoom out so that you see more of the data and the font is smaller. But you could also stay at the font size that you were at and narrow those columns again, but making it so that you could read the whole header. And the way that you do this is to manually resize the column width. And so select the line between two columns and then physically as far as the mouse goes, move it across so that it is the width that you desire. So I'm going to do this with the 3 n columns. And then I'm going to take the headers, select them, and I'm going to have the text wrap in those particular cells. And I'm going to do that by going to the ribbon on the Home tab here and select this particular icon that you can find in the middle. And when you do this, it wraps the text. You won't be able to see the benefits of this until you actually pull down the row so that it is deeper. And this way you can see these column headers more fully while having a smaller overall data set. To make your headings more visible, add some formatting. You can do this by selecting the cells that you want to add formatting to, and then adding that formatting in this fill color box and selecting whatever color you desire, so probably something fairly light so you can still read it. And then you could also add other formatting such as italicizing or bolding, underlining, whatever you see here. I've just realized now that I neglected to add that formatting to column A, and so I could just do that in the same way I showed you, but I'll show you another trick that you can use, which is to use the Format Painter. Some of you might know this trick from Word because it's in some of the other Microsoft programs, but essentially you go to a cell that has a formatting you like, you click on the painter, and then you apply it to the new cell. And if you click it once, it only applies it once. If you click it twice, then you have that formatting stored in your paintbrush, and it will affect whatever you click on. So just be sure to make sure that you click it for the number of times that you actually want to have that formatting work. And I'll just undo what I did there using the undo button, another great feature of this software. I've shown you a number of ways to format your data set using individual functions in Excel. There's also a way to format a data table by using a single function in Excel, and that's called insert table. And so what you do for this is position your cursor anywhere in the data set, and then go to the Insert tab in your ribbon and press on Table. And what this does is create a table for you based on what it recognizes as a data set, so any data that's all together. And then you press OK on the pop-up menu, and it creates a table based on one default format and others that you can select here. So there are some advantages and disadvantages of using this. It comes, when you do this, it comes complete with a number of other features, which will be the topic of later demonstrations. But essentially it will format your table so that the column width is more reasonable to look at, and it has some color formatting. Another nice thing to be able to control is whether you want to be able to see the grid lines or how much you actually want to see of the headings and of the various toolbars. And you can do that by changing the options under View. So you'll see here that there are some choices here about whether you see the formula bar or not, whether you see the headings or not, and also something that I like to change depending on what I'm looking at, whether I want to see the grid lines. So by removing the grid lines, you end up looking at the data set more like you would in a Word document. I'll now show you how you can hide some columns because you may not want to see everything that's listed here, and it can make it easier to work with. So in this data set, I have both a date of birth for the employee and their current age. And it would be easier just for me to look at their current age, so I'm going to hide this column. And so I do that by selecting the column, and then I can hide it two ways. My favorite way is to right-click and then to select Hide over here, and the second way is to find Hide on the ribbon, which I find is a little bit cryptic, but it's over here under Format. So you click on Format and you'll see Visibility, Hide and Unhide, and then here you can select Hide Columns, so then it hides it. And it's also important to know how you can unhide. The way you can do that is to click on the two columns that are next to the hidden column, and then you do the same. You either right click or go to that same icon on the ribbon and then choose Unhide. Another feature that's really useful in Excel for being able to see your data more clearly is something called freezing panes, and you can find this on the ribbon under View, and there's a pull down menu for freeze panes. And this allows you to do a number of things. You can freeze the top row. So now when you are looking at your data set, you can move through the data set, scroll through it, and the top row is not moving at all. So you can always know what you're looking at. And you could also do this so you can freeze the first column as well. So now the data moves off to the right while that column is stable. And you could also do both of those things. So the third option here is to do so first you have to unfreeze what you've done, and then to freeze both a row and a column, you'll want to go first to the cell that is at the junction of where you want the data to move. Then you go under Freeze Pane and select Freeze Panes. And this will make the first column and the first row frozen. What I'd like to cover now is how you can insert some kind of comment into your spreadsheet. So if you wanted to be able to provide supplementary information to what you see in the data set, it's often tempting just to be able to do this on the side, write some comment just directly into some cell. But this can be tricky later on if you wanted to be able example, to delete a row, it would actually delete the comment, or if you wanted to expand the data set over to the right by adding new columns. So there are some alternative ways in Excel. The first of these is that you can insert a text box, and you can find the text box on the ribbon under Insert. So it's found over on the right here. And it's pretty straightforward to use. You click on text box and you open it to the desired size, and then you could leave comments here. So you could include things like this data set is only relevant to the first location of the project, etc., etc. So generally these comments would be aimed at characterizing the data set in general and not a specific data point, although it certainly could. But there's another tool for that called inserting a comment. It's not found under Insert, although I think it should be, but it's found under Review. And this is where you first need to go to the cell where you'd like to leave a comment, and then you'll see that it's now possible to insert a comment here. You click on this, and then it pops up a box for you to type in the comment. So you could, for example, if this employee completed a standard course and part of an advanced course, you could note that here, completed part of the advanced training. And you'll see these comments if you hover over the cell. And you could also make it so that you can see all the comments on the spreadsheet if you have more than one, just by clicking on this other tab or this other button. And you can also move to the next comment in the sheet easily by using these two arrows here. At this point, we've looked at many different features in Excel aimed at making it easier to look at and use your data set. Thank you very much for tuning in, and please stay tuned for new demos that will be available on the Demonstrating Value website soon that will be directed more at how you can analyze and aggregate your data using formulas and some other functions in Excel, such as filtering.